All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
We are on the air live. Thank you very much. I am excited to be here, and we do have Albert back today from Japan. He is our stalwart producer a few days a week, and he was in Japan, as is his wont. He kind of likes to jump over to Asia for a few days, and it's great to have you back, Albert. You have a story or two from Japan that you'll be sharing with us maybe briefly at some point?
Sure, maybe some videos and some pictures too.
Maybe. So. Well, and very good. Maybe some videos and maybe some pictures. That's the kind of tease that we are good at on this show. Yes. What a show it's going to be, too. Got a visit from my British boyfriend, Anthony Davis, off the top of the show. We'll get to that quickly. And Branko Marcetic is going to be here today, and we'll talk about everything from Social Security to the tech bro invasion of Washington and what the long game is. And, of course, the professor, John Rothmann, joins us on Wednesdays. Yeah, he'll be with us as well, so we've got a lot of that. And then, frankly, the brilliance that is always this show. And Kim is here as well. Let's feel good. It was more than a little bit odd. I mean, I'm no presidential historian the way John Rothmann is. But I don't remember having ever read about a president pitching cars on the White House lawn. I don't recall the transformation of any other White House into a car showroom. I mean, I know that during the war, in World War II, there were these pleas to, help with the industry to support the war overseas. But I don't recall them ever turning the White House into something of a showroom for an auto manufacturer. But that's exactly what Donald Trump did. We'll talk more about that as the day goes on. Although, Albert, do you have a little bit of it? It was pretty terrific. And it did give us what might be my favorite new drop on the show. On the way out of the photo op and the, whatever you want to call that thing, the pitch that Trump was doing, he did hit everybody with it wasn't it, I want to say he used the word... I
love Tesla.
Tesla, that's it. Yeah. I love Tesla.
I love Tesla.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That is my new favorite drop for the day. So Tesla. You will probably likely hear it again.
Do you find that to be kind of cheap and tacky?
Oh, my God, yes. I mean, look, you don't think that putting out a sneaker line that memorializes an assassination attempt, you don't think that was cheap and tacky? You don't think putting out a meme coin for you and your wife so you can make hundreds of millions of dollars, which is exactly what did happen, you don't think that's cheap and tacky? You don't think that selling Bibles made in China
definitely.
That are, with but I think Donald Trump is cheap and tacky? I mean, the man is
cheap and tacky.
No, there's just he's redefining what is acceptable.
We cross a line when the White House is in the background and you're hawking things on the front lawn, basically, in the circular drive of the White House.
Well,
maybe it's the same thing as selling Bibles, but I just think that we've crossed it into new territory here.
I
love Tesla.
It may be. It may be. Kim may be right. We are in new territory. It's certainly not territory that is familiar to us. I will say also that the idea somehow that on a serious note that tariffs could, he's begun this smack talking that has accompanied these tariffs. The completely unprovoked trade war that is ongoing is also something that is bizarre. So even as the tacky, crazy Tesla pitch goes down, he also has begun this other craziness which will affect the American economy, which could easily end up in a free fall as a result of this. These tariffs don't have a good history if you look back at these retaliatory tariffs, then retaliation for the retaliation, it all spirals quite quickly, and it can get to a very ugly place. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll bring on Anthony Davis, is that, calling Canada the 51st state, calling the, prime minister, I don't know if it was the prime minister, it was a member of their
Are you talking
parliament.
about Doug Ford, or no?
Yeah, I am. He called him the governor. He deliberately called him the governor as if to say, you're the 51st state and I'm calling you governor. I forget, but Anthony Davis will straighten me out. But it's just a bizarro world we're living in, I guess, what I'm saying, from the standpoint of the White House. If you look at the White House as the nucleus of that world, he is unhinged on one level, on brand on another level, and then you throw in the complete sidling up to Russia and essentially selling out all of the American interests that have been in place for decades. I'm talking about allies and trade agreements and, again, military alliances, values. They've all been sold out in 6 weeks' time. This is a kind of bizarro thing. So, a lot to get to. I'll get to Anthony Davis. We are a live show. We started as a radio show in the San Francisco Bay Area on a station called KGO. They went away in a corporate conglomerate close-up of radio stations. They've erased a bunch of them. So we took everybody here, and we do the show from 2 to 4 in the East, 11 to 1 in the West. You are welcome to contribute. I mean, just contribute with your thoughts in the live chat or even in comments after the show. I read all the comments. Sometimes there are hundreds of them. I read them. And there was a comment actually today or yesterday saying, Mark, are you reading these comments? And it was like, it was 150 comments down, and I did respond to it. So anyway, I do encourage you to be part of our crew and the crew that supports this show. We're so grateful. I might be able to afford a Tesla if you weren't tanking the economy, Donnie, says Luis. Yeah, ain't it true? Yeah. Thanks for the $5 super chat. Pretty crazy. And what's going on now is it's another level.
What we have here is a situation.
We have
what he's got going here is a situation.
He's brought us all into this situation. So that's the scary part. I'm just trying to get my my screens working. I've got like a bunch of different screens working. I love Tesla. Tesla's got a bunch of screens working too. The Tesla stock and Teslas themselves are an endangered species. Kim will tell you more about that in a moment as we welcome in my my favorite Brit. I can't believe it's not a competition, but if it were, I would say he would win it. How about it for my British boyfriend from the Midas Touch Network? And the Midas Touch Network now dominant. Anthony Davis, everybody. Look at you, number one. The Midas Touch Network with a little bounce in your step.
Except I'm always sitting down. So,
yes.
Yeah, there is something to that. There we go.
I'm very excited for your success. I think you guys do great work over there, you particularly. Your 5-minute news is how we discovered you, And now we realize all the other shows you do. You do the... list a couple of them just quickly, and then we'll move on.
Well, interestingly, it was 5-minute news that was discovered by Midas Touch, because I was making 5-minute news as an audio show, and they were like, we would love to blow this up for you, but you need to be on camera. I was like, no, my hairdresser would never allow it. And so... if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing these kind of video things. And so they kind of gave me the confidence to do that. So yeah, I still do 5-minute news every single day, and those shows also appear on the Midas Touch Network. But 5-minute news you can find on the 5-minute news YouTube channel. Wednesdays I do a show with Ron Filipkowski called Uncovered, and then on Sunday the weekend show where we do long form, kind of hour-and-a-half deep dive conversations about the state of America. So. Yeah. There's no shortage of material. It's about 10 shows a week.
That's just amazing. Congratulations on it all. All right, let's start with the ridiculous, and then we'll get to the sublime. The ridiculous is the Tesla pitch. Albert, if you can just quickly play for Anthony and myself and for everyone a little bit of what happened at the White House yesterday. Trump, seeing that Tesla was being literally attacked. I mean, that the Teslas are being defaced. The Tesla stock, as I mentioned, is tanking. The Tesla reputation is really being smeared, And so Elon Musk, who is Trump's donor, I mean, the donor of record, he doesn't want to see this guy damaged. And so he weirdly, crudely, as is a lot of the stuff in this administration, it's executed crudely, goes out onto the White House lawn in a set up photo op. And it's more than a photo op. The guy's actually pitching. The president of the United States is pitching for Tesla vehicles. This is a guy who has dumped on electric cars, wants to roll back the transition to electric cars and electric vehicles, for example, that the Postal Service would have, these things under Biden. He wants to roll all that stuff back. But all of a sudden, his best friend, and as I say, his major donor, is taking big hits. So he's a friend of the electric vehicle that is Tesla. Play a little bit of it, if you would, please, Albert.
So what is this one, Elon?
That's the Model Y.
That's a Model Y, so I have a lot of information, including the price.
Yeah.
I want to make a good deal here. I do notice this. They have one, which is $35,000, which is pretty low. What is that all about?
Yeah, what is all that about? Indeed, a photographer for Getty Images captured this shot of the script the president was reading. You may recall this happened a number of times to President Biden as well. Above the president's thumb there, you can see the Tesla models to mention, as well as their prices. And below his thumb, you can see the part about how Teslas can be purchased as low as $299 a month or $35,000. It only got more surreal.
It's like driving a golf cart, basically.
No, it's beautiful. Very simple.
It's very simple. So it's literally like a golf cart that goes really fast.
So he goes on with essentially a pitch. I mean, he pitches for buying these cars. $35,000 seems like it's not a lot of money. He makes, this went on for some time. It was a fairly complicated thing to set up. I'm sure you had to get those cars all out there, and you got to get the media and the media alert. And Trump, with nothing sort of beneath him when it comes to pitching and when it comes to bringing money in of one sort or another, pledged to buy one of these cars. So play the last little bit, and then I'll move on. But this was what dominated the White House yesterday. Go ahead, Albert. I don't know if we have,
what Secret Service go crazy? Thank you.
I mean, if you actually drove it around, it would really be wild.
Wow.
That's
That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Okay, I've seen enough. And then, he saw everybody out of the White House having purchased supposedly.
I love Tesla.
Saying, I love Tesla. So this is bizarre and tacky, as we were saying before, but it happens in the shadow of this trade war, which is real, and also the dismantling of government, which is leading to tens of thousands of people out of work. It's bizarre against that backdrop,
There's a bunch of things about that event yesterday that really kind of made me think this country is it's one giant infomercial. Like, I feel right now, and I am a bit depressed about this administration. Every day I wake up and I dread checking my phone. But it's like being in a reality TV show with Trump as the host. That's how it feels. Every day there's something. It made clear to me that, firstly, Trump doesn't know the first thing about anything. So he doesn't really, most people can tell the difference between a Model Y and a Model 3. Like, these cars have been out for nearly a decade now. It's like, if you live and you go out and about and you just know this stuff. He didn't know anything about anything. And then he gets in and he goes, it's like a computer. This suggests to me that the man who is running the free world, or the formerly free world, not free anymore because you get arrested if you have an opinion they don't like, doesn't live in the same society as we do. He is so far removed from our shared reality. I mean, who hasn't looked up the price of a Tesla and think, oh, maybe I'll get a Tesla, even as a fantasy, even if you can't afford it? You still go on the website and you have a little look and see what the lease deals are. That's just like living in a normal kind of American society. Trump cannot do that. And then he also lied about the fact that he can't drive. He said, oh, you know, I used to love to drive. You know, I love to drive. I love cars. I would drive, but they won't let me. They won't let me drive. They won't let me drive. I mean, look, Joe Biden was driving around the forecourt of the White House all the time. So it's not about they won't let him drive. He just can't drive because he's a mess. He's an absolute mess, and he probably doesn't have a driver's license anymore. But that aside, it's the corruption that really sticks out here because, you know, I remember Chevy bringing out new cars and the former presidents celebrating the new vehicles. That's what you do for great American companies. But not if the boss of that company is working for the administration in the White House and cutting everything that people hold dear, including Social Security, which is next. So that is the conflict of interest. He only did this because of Tesla's share price, and Musk probably moaned to him and said, oh, the share price is crashing, and, you know, I'm doing all this great work, and I don't understand why people aren't supporting me. And Trump's like, I know what I'll do. I'll do an infomercial for you. Give me a cheat sheet, as he did, and then goes out there and does a terrible job of selling Teslas to the public. Because then you have to ask, which person is going to see Trump being a clown and a disaster with Musk outside the White House with this Tesla and think, you know, I want to be like that. I get me one of those Teslas right now. If Trump likes it, even though he's not driving it and he said he can't drive it, and maybe he'll just buy it and have it for his staff. No, I mean, people are not that stupid, and Trump thinks they are. So there you go. I'll finish now.
Well, that's
how
news,
I felt.
There are two. I have a general insight that I'd like to share, and then there's big news adjacent to this, and I'll start with the big news that's adjacent to this. Kim was pointing out, before we came on, that the recharacterization of protest against Tesla as domestic terrorism is a truly troubling thing. And I've seen this in the animal rights movement, because animal rights protesters are prosecuted using a domestic terrorism template that is far more intense, can lead to incredible jail time threats, like 15 to 20 years, for simply being involved in an animal rights protest. But they pick and choose how they prosecute and what things are classified as what. And in this case, now, if you prosecute those associated with violence against Tesla, okay, and I don't know what that means.
Well, there hasn't been any violence, really.
Exactly.
It's been protest.
Right.
And a couple of people have, you know, splashed paint on the outside, which, again, is part of peaceful protest. It's non-permanent, it's making a point, and it's, you know, it's just light criminal damage. It's not terrorism. And you know, terrorism is when you break into the U.S. Capitol. Terrorism is when you attack police officers and you know, cause that level of damage because the president at the time tells you, I'll go with you and we're not going to have a country if we don't go and, you know, take it back. I mean, the hypocrisy is so offensive. But, you know, why is the media not using the word authoritarianism every single day? Because all of these stories, Mark, that we read and we hear, and of course, Mahmoud Khalil, who is the guy who was arrested a few days ago on the weekend, I think it was Saturday, for being part of the Columbia University peaceful protests supporting the Palestinians in the war on Gaza. I mean, he's now, you know, no one knows where he is. He's been disappeared by the authorities for no reason. He's a legal permanent resident, green card holder. They've totally broken the law in this process. The judge says he can't be deported, which is great news, but it should never have come to that. We are living in an authoritarian fascist regime, and American exceptionalism is preventing anybody from kind of going, yeah, we are. It's the same with the constitutional crisis.
Thing you've just said, because this myth of American exceptionalism has prevented us from really seeing that the pot is boiling already. Yeah. I want to double back just quickly, though, and say that some of the Tesla stuff, I don't want to soft pedal it completely. Sure. There was a a Tesla charging station that was set on fire. There was a Molotov cocktail, I think, thrown at a Tesla dealership. There were shots fired in Oregon at a Tesla dealership. It's not as though there haven't been some legit violent moves relative to Tesla. So again, I don't know if I prosecute them as domestic terrorism.
Well, they're caused by the president. I mean, it would be different if these things were happening randomly because someone didn't like the fact that Elon Musk tried to get the Nazi party elected in Germany, right? They're not protesting that. They're protesting the fact that he has cut billions of dollars worth of aid to the most hungry people in Africa, that he's coming after Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. That's what they're protesting, and that is your right. It is your right to assemble and to protest in America. And the moment that the leadership goes, okay, we're not having any of that, that is the door of fascism being pushed wide open.
It's incredibly rich that this administration, which was really behind encouraging the greatest act of domestic terrorism, as you say, the invasion of the Capitol, where many police officers and officials were beaten within inches of their life, and one person was killed, others died the next day and in the days that followed, that they could somehow suggest that this protest around Tesla that does, again, lead to some of these incidents to which I've referred, that somehow could be domestic terrorism. You won't call one domestic terrorism, even as it's clearly
He released them all. He gave them all a pardon. He put his personal militia back out onto the streets. These were people that went through the court process, and 90% of them pleaded guilty. And he still set them free. Look, nobody voted for Elon Musk. I personally don't believe that as many people voted for Donald Trump as you think. But Elon Musk himself is a civilian. He's himself an immigrant. He has shown up and is basically running the government. Trump just didn't want to go to prison, so he is delegated. He just wants to play golf now that he's been elected. And all of this stuff is because of Donald Trump. What is the common denominator with January 6th and the vandalizing the Tesla dealerships? The common denominator is Donald Trump being a terrible person. You know, saying you're not going to have a country anymore if we don't go attack the Capitol. Or bringing Musk in to run the government because he's too lazy to do it himself and has someone to blame. I mean, this is the theme, and this is going to keep happening time and time again. And if you look around the world and see how Europe is scrambling to try and reposition its military and invest in military, that's not a good thing. That's not because Donald Trump did a great thing and got them to pay more. It's because they are not guaranteed the support of the transatlantic alliance anymore, because Trump doesn't want to have anything to do with any countries outside the US. This is very dangerous. This is how Hitler rose to prominence. This is how the Second World War started. And, you know, Trump is just, you know, I always struggle to have real empathy for how Hitler managed to take over, firstly Germany and then Europe, and convert regular Germans into Nazis, because I wasn't there, and you can read about it, but you can't really feel it. Now, Mark, I can feel it. We are going through this period where a nut job leader is just lying about everything, and people will believe him, and we're suddenly looking at the most polarized situation America has found itself in. It's not just the Democrats versus the Republicans. It's America and Russia versus the rest of the world. And it's only taken 6 weeks.
The parallels to the rise of the Third Reich are interesting, and the authoritarian parallel is clear to me. I would say this, you know, Hitler rose at a time of economic hardship for Germans. We actually are enjoying, notwithstanding the fact that he won because of the price of eggs. Again, I think that was just a hook on which to hang racism and a bunch of other stuff that, you know, and just general grievances, owning the libs, whatever it was, that political correctness, these things that are, I suggest, irritants, but they're basic resentments that all are kind of like, nah, I'm sick of it. I'm bring in Trump again, whatever. And then they call it the price of eggs. But the economic health of the nation prior to the last week or 10 days was really quite good. He inherited a super solid economy. I mean,
but he would never admit that, though, would he?
But I'm just saying that he's had to, do a bigger lift, don't you think, Anthony, to kind of assert himself, given the fact the economy really isn't that bad. You're going to see it get really bad real fast.
Which he's admitted. He said, initially it was like, there's going to be a period of, where a turbulence. And then now he's going like, well, there might be a recession. And meanwhile, the markets are nosediving. Forget Tesla's stock. I mean, look at the S&P 500. So I'm just very much of the opinion that this whole thing must be a plan to crash the economy on purpose. I cannot think you can be that stupid. All of them. They're all involved because they've all gone to cash. They're all crashing the markets, and then they're all going to buy back in at a much lower price and then wait for the economy to grow in 3 or 4 years' time. I cannot see how you can be so dumb because, as Justin Trudeau said, and by the way, it was Trudeau earlier when you were thinking about which governor it was. Governor Trudeau is what he was saying. It's
Governor Trudeau.
Trudeau said there's no need for these tariffs. Like we're not at war with each other. The excuse Trump gave for putting 25% on Canadian goods was because they're allowing fentanyl to come across the border, which is completely untrue. There is just no data or evidence to back that up. And so, Trump has had to lie to kind of find a reason to go to war with Canada and Mexico. They must be doing this on purpose to crash the world economy. It must be. I mean, it sounds like a conspiracy because it's so nuts, Mark.
Well, one of the things, Anthony, I think that there are two aspects to this, I think. One of them is that it is an authoritarian playbook that you rise from the kind of ashes. That's why I mentioned the Third Reich rising from,
Hitler
the economic
was the German
ruin.
chancellor, and Hitler got in because of interest rates.
Thank you.
And he was going to balance the economy, and people bought into that. But it was the same here. Even though the economy was growing out of the back of the pandemic, thanks to Biden and the administration, people weren't feeling it because of the price gouging and also the supply chain, and eggs became this thing. But, you can live without eggs. I mean, am I right in saying you don't eat eggs?
I don't. No, I do not.
So this is my point. You can live without eggs, but you can't live without freedom. You can't live without your vote. You can't live without free speech and free movement. That's what's at stake.
This from Ryan with 20 euros. Thank you for the super chat. Corruption behind closed doors, i.e. representatives making stock trades, etc. This is a little bit of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or out in the open like Trump promoting Tesla. What's the difference? Washington, D.C. is one big corrupt cesspool. It has always been corrupt, but the corruption now has been amplified on a level that I've never seen it.
I mean, there's corruption when it's, just part of a system being too big. And then there's kind of Lex Luthor level corruption, which is what we're looking at now. And so I don't think you can compare. I mean, look, he fired 17 inspectors general in his first week. Did anybody know what their job was? Because I don't think people really knew until now. Their job is to weed out corruption, is to look for waste and inefficiency in the federal government. And there's 17 of them. And that is their job, and they're really good at it. And they fired them all. What does that tell you about what is really going on? Doge is not about waste, fraud, and abuse. Doge is ideological. It's about not giving money to black Africans to eat. It's about getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion because the MAGA Republicans, their testosterone levels won't allow for it.
Well, it's also Musk's personal grievances. He goes after USAID first because they were doing the investigation on Starlink with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and Starlink was turned off for the Ukrainians. USAID was doing that. Then he goes to the FAA, he gets rid of them. The FAA was fining him for the thing that we've seen in the last week, which is the rockets that are blown up and then they affect traffic patterns. He got rid of the FAA people, goes to EPA. They're fining him as well for the debris going down into fragile habitats. So you see how...
Because he's a criminal mastermind. I mean, and that's why why he gets on with Trump so well. That's why Trump got on with Jeffrey Epstein so well. Because all of these people, they are all of the same character. They're not good people. They don't understand. They don't have any concept of empathy or why you would just give money to, only 0.63% of the federal budget to the rest of the world to maintain a sense of influence and keep people out of poverty. Like, to them, it makes no sense. But to the rest of us who are actual humans, who have all of our faculties, it's essential. America is the richest economy in the world. It can afford to give away 0.63% of its budget to help the very poorest and to spread the message that America is a great country. And that's why people want to move here, and that's why people queue up at the southern border, because we've been giving them aid and supporting them and telling them that America is generous.
That's soft power. Exactly. That's soft power. Lori Dolly says, Anthony Davis, have him tell you about the Rebel Alliance from his 5-minute news yesterday, Lori Dolly says. Quickly, we'll do that on the way out here. Thank you, Lori, for a $30 super chat, by the way. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said that it was time. I was talking about the Democrats and their strategy, and I was saying that it's time now to allow the Rebel Alliance to go attack the Death Star. Because I really do see this. I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I always do a lot of Star Wars references. But, it is good against evil, the dark side and the good side of the Force. And there's no doubt to me that the Democrats are the Rebel Alliance. And they need to come together, and they need to not worry about being criticized for representing all views and being completely inclusive. Because actually, Trump's remit is so narrow. It's just like white men and their coerced wives brimming with racial microaggressions. I don't believe that's the majority of America.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's more people than you may think. And I would say there are other things that Trump draws on for support. I mean, I think one of the things that propelled him to victory was the sense that he'd be good for the economy, good for business. Again, it's illusory. It's crazy. I mean, I saw this train coming down the tracks, and you did too. But there are others, even Wall Streeters, bankers, who go, yeah, but Trump will be good for the economy. He's not serious about the tariff stuff.
Well, because they've been brainwashed. They're in the cult. This is a national mental health crisis. It's not as simple as the ledger, because all the economists say that the tariffs won't bring in any revenue, and that Doge is not really finding waste. It's just, getting rid of things that they don't like the sound of or they've never heard of. So, and the stock market is crashing. And look, every Republican presidency has grown the debt massively. And every Democratic presidency has come and reduced the debt and invested. And it's been like that since time began. And yet, for some weird reason, the Republicans have a reputation for being better with money. Yes. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't trust them to go down to 7-Eleven and do my shopping. They spend 3 times more than I was prepared to pay for.
Anthony, you rock, dude, said somebody. Northern Tier, I think. Susan Roberts, I'm traveling to London next month. Please ask Anthony Davis if they will let me in, since I'm from the USA.
You're fine. You have a 6-month freedom voucher. So come on in for 6 months.
All right. Good stuff. We got to wrap up with Anthony Davis. Check him out on the Minus Touch Network. He's #1 now. So I appreciate you coming over here to slum with us. You're not only my favorite Britisher, but you're one of my favorite people, as you know, and great takes. By the way, I think one of the things that Trump is about is the announcement. I think he likes to announce things. You know what I mean? I'm really serious, Anthony. I think he likes to make the statement about Tesla, make the statement about the tariffs. So
yeah, I mean, Gulf of America, that's just straight out of Trump's ideas box, Yeah. And I think a lot of people have said he just wants to be in the newspapers every single day.
So
he's going to announce stuff, even if it doesn't really mean anything, because he hates to not be talked about.
Precisely. And yet these things that he's announcing and the back and forth and the perceived respect that he has from other world leaders, it's going to lead to some very dark things, sadly. Yeah. So, all right, come visit again. Thank you. Anthony Davis, everybody.
Thank you.
Love it. Love seeing you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's a reality TV host, is what Trump is. So he plays the reality TV moments. He plays the announcements. He plays the tariffs for the drama and the back and forth. This all feeds the narrative that he wants, that underscores his power. It's a scary thing that he's flirting with. Vilma says, any way you look at it, the Trump administration, in my opinion, an elected coup. I agree, of course. Thank you, Vilma. I completely agree. I think the coup is complete. And what's completed the coup is the fact that the GOP has been cowed by this man and by his main henchman, who is Elon Musk, because Musk's power, his money, prevents them from doing anything to push back on this. Even the continuing resolution. I'll talk to John Rothmann about that in a moment. And so you see no way in which this guy can be in any way limited. And that's a scary thing. Carrie Arias, thank you so much. It's Carly. Carly, thank you for the super sticker. I love it. $20 super sticker. I thank you. We're a crowd-funded show, so we make a big deal out of the crowd that funds us. Absolutely. Quesadilla 79, a $5 super chat for a one-wheel mark. What does that mean, Kim? You're smarter than I am. And
I have no idea what that means. I thought maybe it was in reference to a Tesla, to a vehicle.
Oh,
that'll get you one wheel. I don't know.
Quesadilla 79, you don't have to send a super chat, but do send us something saying what one wheel mark means.
I blame you.
All right. It could be my fault somehow. I'm sure it is my fault. Peter Newton, hey, it's crazy. It's crazy, Donnie, and we are having a going out of government sale. Everything is for sale. It isn't even mine to sell, but man, am I making a killing. And I'm not just talking about money.
Oh.
Yeah. Ain't it true? That's dark. That's dark, baby. That's dark. Yeah. So somebody check on Branko too. I think I saw him show up for a second. He has the wrong time. I think he's in the. He's
I told him, and he'll come back at 12:30. But we have John Rothmann.
No, I know we do, but I just want to make sure that's just me living out loud here for a second.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
I know. There is a reason this place is fun. All right, smash the like button. Let's get going here. We go.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This man is a brilliant historian, presidential historian. I'll ask him to put what's going on in the White House now into some kind of context. But I'm also curious about the politics of the moment and the Democrat situation when it comes to Senate seats. There was a major retirement announced. So we'll put all of that together with a guy who can do it. He is John Rothmann, everybody. Hello, sir.
How are you? By the way, I thought your guest, Anthony Davis, hit everything on the mark. He is absolutely correct.
Yeah, he is so good, as are you. Now, tell me a little bit about your take. There is, I'll start with the White House, then I want to, as I say, get to the Senate. Out of the White House, I think Donald Trump really enjoys these pronouncements that he makes. You know, he likes to, the Gulf of America was one. The tariffs, the announcement of the tariffs, a big thing. You know, how he's changing the map. He talks about, you know, annexing Canada. These are the things that, I mean, I think it's lunacy, it's insanely dangerous and dark. But what I'm talking about is this urge he has to be the center of attention and pursue this kind of reality TV show agenda. And you see these things, if you see them in a reality TV show way, as very much fitting in to the kind of drama that he maintained with producers, of course, on his show, The Apprentice. I wonder if you can just put this in some context for me.
Look, Mark, this president is violating every constitutional principle. You can talk all of the things that you've just said, absolutely true. But this is a man who has just abolished, essentially, the Department of Education, which was established in 1979 by the Congress of the United States and approved by the President of the United States at the time, Jimmy Carter. He is acting unconstitutionally. And the problem is, and you hit the nail on the head with the Republicans, they have no guts. They're not going to take him on as long as he is an apparent winner and as long as he bullies people. Look what he did on this continuing resolution. He said, you don't support me, I'll primary you. This is, I must tell you, Mark, beyond my comprehension. It is a direct attack on democracy. And the American people had better wake up fast, or we are going to have serious problems. As for Elon Musk and his hawking cars on the White House lawn, I was so appalled I can't even begin to tell you. And then the announcement the same day of $100 million contribution to Trump's political operation. It is, to me, corruption at its highest, and he needs to be called on it. I worked for Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon is a saint compared to this guy. And I'm disgusted by it. Let me also say to you, the Russians have still not responded on the Ukraine deal. But what are they doing? They're pummeling Kiev with missiles. And frankly, I wouldn't believe Vladimir Putin on anything. So this, to me, it's beyond the realm of my political skill, except to say that what Donald Trump has done is not only an impeachable offense, it's a violation of the Constitution. And you're going to ask me about the Republicans. The Republicans are not going to cross him until he sinks in the polls. Now, the latest poll this morning showed 45% approval rating, 55% disapproval rating. But Donald Trump doesn't care. Do you understand? He can't run for re-election. There's no accountability. And he is going to pursue his path as he sees fit. And every American should be scared out of their wits. You know the book by Philip Roth, The Plot Against America? Well, Donald Trump's plot is against America.
So
have I made myself clear, Mark?
You have, and you said a couple of things, and I want to just underscore one of them anyway, and that is the $100 million. Musk realizes that, you know, he owns this guy and really owns the country. I mean, you have this single-handed misfit when it comes to government. He has nothing about governance. He's not been involved with public service in any way, and he's dismantling the American institutions that
he's going after Social Security.
Right.
He's going after Medicare. He's going after Medicaid. The American,
so the $100 million though is, but the $100 million is sort of like the cost of staying in the game.
It's a bribe.
No, exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's
He's going to stay in the game no matter what. No matter how much money he loses on his Tesla stock, the man is still the richest man in the world. And Donald Trump is enthralled with that. No. This is a crime that should be investigated. And because we have Republican passivity, when this is over, the Republican Party will suffer at the polls, I believe. It'll make Herbert Hoover's depression look like child's play.
Well, this is really interesting that you mentioned Hoover, and I'll get to that in a second. But, John, he hasn't done anything illegal. What do you mean I want an investigation?
No, I disagree.
That's not true. No, he can donate $100 million to Trump's political campaign. There's nothing illegal about it.
No, but you're right about that. But the ethics of it are such that it's intolerable.
Yeah. ethics left the building, a while ago. Sadly,
listen, that $1 million check you just sent me, I accept it gladly as a bribe. I mean, that's what essentially is going on here. By the way, I said $1 million because Mark can't afford $100 million, but I'd take that.
Well, just because you mentioned the bribes and contributions, I'll reference the tariffs. One of the things that tariffs give you is a lot of power as president to enforce the tariff, to give tariff relief, tariff exceptions, roll back tariffs for a period. And how oftentimes is that done? It's done by the president in relation to payoffs. It opens things up to corruption and some kind of favor or rapprochement that oftentimes can be linked to financial dealings.
But you understand, tariffs were traditionally imposed by Congress, not by the president. The Smoot-Hawley tariff in 1930 was repealed in 1933. And again, the Congress should call this for what it is, an intrusion on the power of the Congress of the United States.
Well, how did he get away with this being
the Republicans?
The Republicans
are afraid of Donald Trump.
Because he declared this an emergency. He declared this economic national emergency. Thank you. And in so doing, the power to levy these tariffs rests with him. Isn't that what happened?
Yes, and the Congress ought to stand up and say, you haven't got the right. You don't have the right. And I've
Well,
yet to hear
okay,
anybody
this
argue.
is now I'll get to the Congress then, because thank you for taking us there. So this continuing resolution, Congress does have an option on from the standpoint well, first they have their budget, but let's go to the tariffs first. They have the option, as you've said, of saying no, it's not a national emergency, and so the power on these tariffs rests with us. Don't they have that? They have that power.
Of course. And the problem is the Republicans are so intimidated. I want you to know the Speaker of the House of Representatives is a disgrace on every level, has let down the House. I'm not going to go into history on this, but I can tell you there are House speakers who preceded this speaker who absolutely would reject any notion that the president has this kind of power. And all I can say is the only hope here is that the American people wake up and do a resounding rejection of the Republicans in 2026. And that's absolutely necessary. And that's what has to happen.
So now to the CR, this continuing resolution, the money to keep the government funded. What's happening with that? We got the House.
Now it has to go to the Senate, and the Senate Republicans, I think, will simply fold over and say yes.
Yeah, for the same reasons that we've articulated before. They're scared.
Yeah, listen, there is no more Republican Party.
Yeah.
It is the party of Donald Trump, and it's a one-man party, and they're going to defend him no matter what until their own political hides are on the line. And then maybe you'll see some courage. But this is a disgrace. Can you imagine this week that he cut off aid to Ukraine? He cut off the intelligence sharing, and now he's prepared to go ahead because Ukraine accepted his terms. Pure blackmail, by the way. Unbelievable if they would accept it, but they have no choice. And where is Vladimir Putin? Nowhere. Vladimir Putin doesn't say what he wants to do. And in the end, Trump will defend him no matter what he does. And as for Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State of the United States, saying this will bring peace, is he crazy? It's so irrational, it defies logic. And if you listen to the banter between the president and the vice president today, JT Vance worries me even more.
The piece of video, Albert, do you have it? I sent it to you. It's Marco Rubio from 2016. So Rubio was running for president, and he was in that group of Republicans.
Little Marco, he called
Little Marco. He was diminished by Trump along the way. And this is a piece of video from Jake Tapper talking to Marco Rubio. And listen to what Marco Rubio says. This is 2016. This is the run-up to the 2016 election. Go ahead, Albert.
You compared Donald Trump to a third-world dictator yesterday in an interview with the New York Times. How so? Well, I don't know about a dictator. I said a third-world strongman. He's running for president, so no matter what, he won't be a dictator unless our republic completely crumbles, which I don't anticipate it will. But yeah, here's what happens in many countries around the world. You have a leader that emerges and basically says, don't put your faith in yourselves, don't put your faith in society, put your faith in me. I'm a strong leader, and I'm going to make things better all by myself. This is very typical. You see it in the third world. You see it a lot in Latin America for decades. It's basically the argument he's making that he single-handedly is going to turn the country around. We've never been that kind of country. We have a president. The president is an American citizen who serves for a period of time, constrained by the constitutions and the powers vested in that office. The president works for the people, not the people for the president. And if you listen to the way he describes himself and what he's going to do, he's going to single-handedly do this and do that without regard for whether it's legal or not. Look, I think people are going to have to make up their mind. I can tell you this, no matter what happens in this election, for years to come, there are many people on the right, in the media, and voters at large that are going to be having to explain and justify how they fell into this trap of supporting Donald Trump, because this is not going to end well one way or the other.
I agree with Marco Rubio in 2016, 100%.
Something happened. Marco.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Indeed.
Marco Rubio pulled the devil in Daniel Webster. He sold his soul.
Indeed. Now take me to the Senate. The Senate loses a Democrat. The senator, is it Jean Shaheen?
Yes, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, exactly. She's going to retire. She's 78 years old. That's a Democratic seat that is now going to be vacant. Give me a sense of the Senate map as we come up to sort of trying to do the calculus on Democrats getting more power?
The odds are the Republicans will retain control of the Senate unless the economy tanks and Donald Trump is overthrown, in terms of his support. And in the House, I think the Democrats have a good, solid chance of capturing the House of Representatives. But you understand, as long as Donald Trump is in the White House, he doesn't give a tinker's damn one way or the other what Congress does. He is now ruling, Mark, by executive order, not by legislative order. In fact, one of the most disgraceful things about what the Republican Party has done is to give the president absolute power, essentially. And that is absolutely wrong. But you asked a question, and I want to answer it directly. I think the Republicans will control the Senate. I think that's the way it looks now, but it's a long way till the election. But the Democrats, I think, can take the House. But let's assume they take the House by 10 seats. They still don't have the power. And I want to remind you, the Senate has absolute power on judicial nominations. That doesn't even go to the House of Representatives. And are the Democrats in disarray? Yes, because they don't have a leader. We no longer have a titular head of a party. The defeated candidate for president used to be the titular head of the party. That doesn't exist anymore. And so who speaks for the Democrats today? Is it Hakeem Jeffries? I don't think so. I think he's leader of a faction in the House, but it doesn't have the stature. And that's the problem. And in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, in many ways, is a very able man, but he's long past his usefulness.
Well, he's long past his usefulness because of the importance of messaging. We are a media age, so you must find someone who can communicate well, like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders...
No, I disagree.
All right.
Bernie Sanders does not communicate well. Bernie Sanders gives me the same line every time I listen to him. No, what you need, may I be blunt?
Well, I say respectfully that line is a pretty solid line.
No,
it is the same line. What's the line? What's the line? I love it when I'm arguing with Rothmann.
Yeah,
What's the line?
It's not a winning line. Be clear.
What is it?
Bernie
you said he gives you the same line all the time. What is the line?
I tell you what the line is. Direct confrontation with Donald Trump. Having attractive, solid Democratic spokesman from the United States Senate who will speak out. And they're trying. But in order to have any gravitas, you have to have a real agenda. You know, during the Jimmy Carter years, there was talk of a midterm convention. Maybe the Democrats need to get together, have a midterm convention, really have a platform they stand on, and select a person who will speak for them. There is no leader of the Democratic Party, and that's the problem.
Well, I'll tell you what I like about the convention idea is just that you seize the narrative for a little while. Right now, the narrative every day goes to Trump, and he knows it, and he's playing it every single day. What I was asking you is, if you say Bernie Sanders says the same thing all the time, tell me what that thing is.
Oh, it's against the wealthy people in this country.
Yeah, it's against the billionaire class. Exactly.
It's a line that does not fly. Barack Obama's line flew because Barack Obama was a clear, articulate spokesperson for the Democratic Party. And they do not have a Barack Obama now.
Well,
Bernie Sanders is certainly
Barack Obama was a generational political figure. I completely agree with that. As is Trump, by the way. I mean, it pains me to say. Yeah, but what I think you really undersell Bernie Sanders. Now, I think Bernie Sanders, doesn't have the media microphone that he used to have. But man, his stuff is still good. He speaks in plain language. And John, the Billionaire Boys Cabinet and the Billionaire Boys Club that is now running America, that should be called out just the way Bernie Sanders does. And I love that line and mentioning corruption. I think those two things, billionaire corruption is
in order to be
powerful.
In order to be a spokesperson, you have to have credibility. Bernie Sanders does not have credibility. He's been rejected by the voters in his presidential campaigns. He's very narrowly based. He doesn't even call himself a Democrat. Bernie Sanders is past.
That might be a virtue that he doesn't call himself the Democrat. And you say he lost. He came very close to winning. I mean, had it not been for super delegates, he might have won.
Nomination. Never. Never came close.
Never came. Against Hillary Clinton, he didn't come close to getting the nomination?
No, he did not. He failed miserably. There was no chance. But look,
he didn't fail miserably,
John. Decade?
Yes, I want to go back.
Why don't we go back to Barack Obama? No, There needs
No,
to
I agree. I agree with you on the
new
oratory. There's no
generational
beating the
leadership.
oratory of a Barack Obama. You're right.
You can't. Bernie Sanders is not in that class. I believe that if you're going to have a successful Democratic Party, it has to be a younger, more powerful, more compelling spokesperson.
I
not
don't
Bernie
disagree.
Sanders,
I don't
who's
disagree
not
with
even
your,
a Democrat.
I
Mark.
don't disagree with your point. And again, the Democrat or not does, but I get what you're saying. John
No,
Rothman,
it has to be a Democrat.
I know you're saying for the leader of the Democratic Party, it has to be a Democrat. Sure,
Yeah,
but what I'm talking about is a voice that will punch through. So
no voice punches through unless they're a leader in the Democratic Party. There is only one opposition party, and it has to have a spokesperson who is clear, articulate, able to run for president of the United States, a person who does not declare himself an independent, and who is not an independent socialist. You're not going to win an election with that line, period.
A younger Bernie would be awesome, says Santi. Exactly. So we just need like a time machine.
No, because he was still a democratic socialist. You have to have someone who can appeal on both sides of the aisle. And that is essential to winning a political victory. And by the way,
you've been saying, John Rothman, the American people will wake up. Professor, would you please tell me what time and date the alarm clock is actually set for, says Luis.
Let
It
me
is weird
assure
how
you,
they...
I have to believe that or else I give up on America.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to give up on America. I'm not going to give up on the fight. And the simple truth is, you have to have somebody to carry the lance, if you will, into the arena. And we need a Democrat who can do that. And by the way, I'm counting on the courts. Now, you may have seen this whole thing from the Republicans now, that Donald Trump may not even obey court orders. He's saying he and Vice President Vance and even the Speaker of the House have said, well, he doesn't have to necessarily follow it. The new Solicitor General of the United States and the new Deputy Attorney General of the United States are making the same claim. This is absurd. It violates the Constitution. Anyone else, if things were equal in the Congress, you'd be facing impeachment. And certainly Republicans must understand and will understand ultimately the damage he's doing. Let the market fall another 1,000 points or 2,000 points or 10,000 points. Let us have a situation in Ukraine which is completely untenable. These realities have to face the American people. But if I don't believe in the system, and I want to answer that question directly, if I don't believe in the system, then you're giving up on the United States. I'm not prepared to give up on the United States of America. I'm not.
Well, I think that's a courageous and encouraging thing to hear. I think it's also coexisting with the fact that the system is failing right now. Certain aspects of the system are failing.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, but
so what do? You count on the courts and you count on the people. That's all you can count on. And I believe Donald Trump ultimately, because of his own hubris, will bring his own downfall, which I would remind you happened to my old boss, Richard Nixon, who won by the largest popular vote, electoral vote. He was incredible in 1972. 2 years later, he wasn't president of the United States anymore.
Yeah, it's weird. In today's environment, Nixon would probably, just deny. And
yes, and the courts would uphold his denial.
Yeah.
There would have been no 8-zip decision as there was in the United States versus Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
Because Trump has Alito and he has Thomas. The good news is that Chief Justice Roberts seems to have the understanding, and Amy Coney Barrett also seems to be willing to dissent on occasion. So look, Mark, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I believe that we have to keep fighting. And I can tell you, we could spend several hours just talking about what the Trump administration has done, which violates the Constitution, and what are really impeachable offenses in my mind. But in order for that to happen, you have to have votes in the Congress. And that's the simple reality.
The last thing I'll say is that the Musk money is being used in these judicial races as well. I mentioned this to those of you who are watching the show. I mentioned this yesterday. I might have mentioned it last week as well. There is a major judgeship in Wisconsin.
There is a battle that is going on over that right now. You're 100% correct.
And what Elon Musk is doing is dropping over $1 million into that Wisconsin judgeship race. The Democratic candidate is now being, wildly outspent by the Republican candidate. And it's interesting. Musk, I think this is a playbook he's going to follow in other races for judgeships, also for gubernatorial seats, et cetera. I think that he feels he can buy the judge in Wisconsin and really control the Supreme Court of Wisconsin.
He believes that to his very fiber.
Yeah.
Now, I've worked Wisconsin, many primaries. I know the state very well. I have to believe, I want to believe, that the people of Wisconsin are smarter than that. And I think they are.
We'll see. But the blast of media, the power of the digital media, the power of legacy media in Wisconsin may still be very, very intense indeed. And I worry because
hey, you want me to get my car ready? We go to the bridge and we jump off together?
No, I get it. I mean, you've and I think you point to some institutions that have to be revived in America, frankly. They have to be reinvigorated, you know. But
absolutely.
Institutions are people.
By the way, ma'am, one more thing. I'm sorry. I know you're moving on, and I know I tend to do this, but I want everybody to look at what's happening in the FBI with Kash Patel as the director of the FBI. The head of the New York office of the FBI was fired. Kash Patel is now making demands of the FBI that are completely wrong. They're completely violations of everything I believe the FBI is supposed to be. Talk about an abuse of power. It's right there. If J. Edgar Hoover were alive today, well, he'd be viewed as a saint compared to what is happening now in the FBI. Can you imagine
to think of it?
Our former colleague, Don Bongino, as the assistant director actually running the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Just listen to his tapes. Listen to what he said on the air. This is a guy who believes in conspiracy theories. This is a guy who believed Trump won in 2020. And he is the number 2 person running the day-to-day operation at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I mean, it is, you know the problem, Mark? It's like playing a whack-a-mole. You have so many things popping up. I make this decision every morning before I go on to do my podcast. I only take 10 minutes on my podcast. And I have to decide what is really important. What can I really emphasize? And I must say this morning I led off with the Department of Education, a department of government created by Congress, signed into law by the President of the United States, that Donald Trump is systematically dismantling, firing half of the people who are there. He doesn't have the power to do that, in my judgment, but somebody has to go to court, somebody has to nail him on it, and then we have to hope the court does the right thing. This is unconscionable. And
give me just a few seconds on the Department of Education and what it does.
Well, the Department of Education was established by an act of Congress in 1979. Everybody Google it. Jimmy Carter signed it into law. In order to abolish a federal department, you have to have Congress repeal it. But what is happening is that Donald Trump has instructed, thanks to Elon Musk, to simply fire these people. Now, they're doing something logical. They're going to court to say, you don't have the power to fire us. But whether or not the courts will uphold them, I can't tell you. But, Mark, it is so distressing to me. You know, your previous guest, who I enjoyed very much, compared this to the Weimar Republic. And those of you who know the history of the Weimar Republic know that Hitler never won an election outright in Germany, that it was the Nazis won seats in the Reichstag and were able to essentially get enough votes to abolish the Reichstag with the Enabling Act. What Donald Trump is doing, and I don't draw analogies to Hitler lightly, and believe me, I'm something of an expert on the Weimar Republic and the politics of the time, so I could go into great depth on this. But what Donald Trump is doing is pushing every constitutional limit, and unless he's slapped back, this country is in deep trouble. And I don't say it lightly. So I happen to believe in the American system, Mark. You and I have discussed this before. I believe strongly that in the end, we will triumph. Remember the book by Philip
I just
Roth,
don't know when the end is, but go ahead. Yeah, finish up, please, John. I'm so
Plot
sorry.
Against America by Philip Roth. It's a
Sure.
fictional account. But believe me when I tell you, what Donald Trump is doing is a plot against America. And it needs to be exposed, and Republicans have to stand up and do it as well. It can't just be Democrats. It has to be Republicans.
Very well put. It really does. It has to, at some point, they have to push back. John, enjoy your stuff. Love going and chasing you around the schoolyard a couple times during
May I
your
say it's always
appearances.
my pleasure. May I urge everybody to contribute to the Mark Thompson program. Why? Because this is a forum which we need to have. I will continue to do what I do on The Voice of San Francisco and, of course, on Around the Political World with John Rothman. Both of those podcasts are 10 minutes every day, Monday through Friday, and I try to hit the nail on the head each time. Of course, I'm not Mark Thompson, so my aim may occasionally not be as precise.
Yes, you can't quite.
Do you know who I am?
Exactly.
I'm kind of a big deal.
It's very hard to hit the way Mark Thompson does. All right, John, the Voice of San Francisco, thevoicesf.org, and, of course, Around the Political World with John Rothman. Bye-bye, John. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
I really wanted, and I'm glad we got to it, I really wanted to touch on that Wisconsin judgeship race. I think it's a big deal. I mean, we're talking about the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. We're talking about Elon Musk all of a sudden entering the race and dumping $1 million into the Republican candidate's campaign. It's massive. The Democrats are pushing back, and they're hoping to get, angry voter sentiment that they can use as a tool against the Republican candidate. I'm talking about angry voter sentiment toward Musk, right, in Wisconsin. But this is a big deal, not for just Wisconsin, although that itself is a big deal, but because it really reflects a plan, a strategy. Musk is the richest guy in the world. It was nothing to give Trump $100 million, which he just did, for Trump's political campaign. Perfectly legal. It's an absolute payoff. And this is the plan for Musk to drop these rounding error amounts. I mean, $1 million, he has that on him. And he can drop that into the Wisconsin race and maybe really influence the outcome. And the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, very, very important. Very important not only for the general course of things in the society that is Wisconsin, the daily life of Wisconsin, but also because Musk has stuff there. Musk has legislation and regulation that he's trying to get around regarding driverless cars. So he's pushing for the driverless car regulations to be loosened. This is a case that will be before the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Musk has a plan. It's power. He has, it seems, unbridled power right now in Washington, but he also has other interests. Albert, welcome back from Japan, my friend. I have missed. How was Japan?
It was good. It was cold. It happened to, I Googled it because it started snowing, and we found out that it snows about 1 or 2 days a year, and when I was there, it was definitely snowing for at least one of the days, but...
How did that affect your? You still enjoyed it though. It's still.
Of course, yeah.
Had you been there before?
No, actually, my very first time. So it was less sightseeing, more of a consumer this trip. So I just wanted to go buy a lot of. It's fortunately the dollar's very strong out there, so I went and bought a whole bunch of stuff that I probably shouldn't have. But
no, this is great. If you're in Japan now with the American dollar, it is incredibly strong, as Albert says. Now, the one thing that will happen is the dollar will be weakened. The dollar is going to be weakened as a result of a lot of these economic policies. So get your travel in real quick, because the dollar and the weakening of the dollar, you could say, is part of the plan. Because when the weaker dollar, what happens? All of a sudden, American goods become more affordable. And so the import-export balance begins to shift, right? So, but it's all inflationary. So what Trump is doing is inflationary. I don't mean to take all conversations back to Trump, but this is really, it feels like a 5-alarm fire right now. But I'm so glad you had fun. And I'm
glad I could tie the two together. With our last hour in my trip. That was a great connection.
So Albert is he is the commissioner of Mark's Madness. Mark's Madness will be back this month. I mean, this is the month for Mark's Madness, and it starts when, Commissioner?
I originally wanted the plan to begin on Friday. I think I'm going to do it on Monday so we could end it around the same time that the actual March Madness will be going on. So we could start that on Monday, and everyone could have until next Wednesday to fill out their bracket. So just stay tuned for next week is what I'm telling everyone right now.
Okay, so will we get any drops to evaluate before the weekend or not? What is the? It's
we'll evaluate what's going to be the crop this year in this running. We're going to retire a whole bunch. We're probably going to have all new drops going into the
now Mark's Madness.
Yeah, so the drops, if people are wondering what they are, they're the sound drops that we use. Like
Smashed it with your iron rod.
that would be one of them. Or
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Or my favorite new one, which is oh no. My favorite new one is the Tesla thing. Do we have it? I don't even have it in the system yet. Let me see if I can.
I love Tesla.
Yeah. So anyway, we play them off against each other, and we'll see that their brackets, and it's just like March Madness, but with drops. So our core audience that is from the radio knows it and loves it, and hopefully you, if you're just joining us and aren't aware of our history, you'll enjoy it too. But Albert puts it all together, and so we're retiring a lot of the old ones. The one that won last year was...
There's always been, in this country, 30 to 35% idiots.
Yeah. Now, that was the comment of Jim Avila, who joins us on Fridays now. Michael Schur, the former ABC News correspondent, White House correspondent, he made that comment, and we grabbed it as a drop. It won Mark's Madness last year, but it will be retired, right, Albert? So now it's...
no repeat champion this year. All new drops. So it'll be exciting.
All right. So that will happen a little bit later this week. You didn't bring any pictures from Japan or anything you can share with us?
I did. I have some video. I've recorded a lot of vertical video because it goes on social media, but here's some videos. This is in Asakusa, which is one of the temples out there.
Uh-huh. That's very nice. Very nicely constructed photo, I might add.
Yeah, we ate at this very good kaisendon place where you could see that we could sit on the tatami mats and on the floor. It felt very authentic when we went there.
Mm-hmm. And what is your command of the Japanese language like? Do you have any?
Just the basics.
Arigato is all you can say. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, just the normal stuff.
Wow.
I went with my girlfriend, and she's from Hawaii, and the Japanese people love Hawaii. So every time they ask where we're from, I just say she's from Hawaii, and they just light up. So
I see. Enter with the girlfriend first.
Yeah, this is in Shinjuku. We stayed in Shinjuku. We stayed in the red light district, so you'd enjoy that area. Mark. It was very much in the center of Tokyo and everything to do.
Poppin area. That's an animated or like an animatronic cat.
Yeah, it's a 3D screen, so it looks very
is that
realistic,
right?
And you could hear it from like quite a ways away. Like I was at the train station and I could hear the cat meowing. I was like, "Is there a cat somewhere here?"
And there is that's Tokyo.
Yes, this is in Shinjuku in Tokyo.
That's really great. God, it's terrific.
And then here's the famous Shibuya crossing.
I really want to go. I really wanted to go when the dollar was strong. I don't think the dollar is going to be strong much longer, but that's great. Love it. Well, welcome back, Albert, and glad we could, we could have a little madness here for you to, to jump on board with.
I love Tesla.
Yeah, and Tesla is very much in the news. All right. So with that said, let me turn to my darling Kim and ask you. What we're doing. By the way, just because we're on a couple of kind of miscellaneous items, Kim, didn't you tell me that there's this Idaho teacher who is having to take down the "Everyone is welcome here" sign?
Yeah.
She has a sign in her classroom that says "Everyone welcome here."
Everyone is welcome. It's like a kid sign, with little hands and hearts in the middle of hands.
Now, why does she have to take that down?
It's considered not to policy. It has rainbows coloring. Apparently it's too DEI for the red district she lives in. And so you can't do that anymore. And you've got to take it down. And that's the way it goes. She said, this is in Idaho. And it's just like, you would see it in any classroom in America. And she's been ordered to remove it. It says everyone is welcome here. That's it.
Gosh, that's just crazy.
That's another one she's got in her class. That one's got to go too. And then you'll see in a moment. There it is. Everyone is welcome here with the little hearts and the palms.
That's
Bye-bye.
absolutely loathsome.
Too many different colors of hands there, perhaps.
I mean, these seem to be kind of basic precepts of America. Can you go back on this video? Not that guy's not really.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he's lovely, but yeah, this is
so let me just
thing.
see the stop for in this room, everyone is welcome, important, accepted, respected, encouraged, valued, and equal. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, so each one of those words is stacked vertically. Okay, so everyone in this room is, and then those words: welcome, important, accepted, respected, encouraged, valued, equul. Then
in the colors of the rainbow.
In the colors of the rainbow.
God forbid LGBTQ issues would be raised because of the rainbow.
Pretty subtle colors of the rainbow. It's not like in your face. Right. And then everyone, and with those sort of rainbow colors, a little bit is welcome here, and is welcome here is in white. Lettering, and then there are black, and then there are white, and then there are tan hands, like different all colors of all the shades of people, right? Yeah. And it seems so beautiful, actually. And I just don't see how you go after an Idaho teacher for putting that in her classroom.
As a mom, those are lessons I want my children to learn. I picked a school that. In my neighborhood, the school is very white. So we go to a school that is not in my neighborhood, that's across town, that has a lot of diversity. So I want my children to know that, they want them to be around other people. Sure. And I want those messages in the classroom. I want everyone to feel welcome. Those are lessons that are important to me. Yeah. So to see that a teacher is doing the right thing, is showing children how we should be, and is told, no, take that down. Outrageous.
Just Give Me the Truth says that's not the rainbow, Mark. You're right. It's not the yellow.
It's rainbow-esque.
It's not rainbow-esque. How would you describe
Roy G. Biv, but
How would you describe it? Just Give Me the Truth. How would Just Give Me the Truth describe it?
I would describe that as the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, and violet. There you go.
I don't know. Again, it's just
rainbow adjacent.
I'm being bullied right now. This is what happened. It's like why doesn't somebody do something about this?
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
They do it to me all the time. Anyway.
That's who we are in America. That's who we are now.
That's it. Well, let's split hairs here, says Karen Cooper.
Of all the things to fight over, whether it's the rainbow or not.
Yes, really? Exactly. Your Honor, it's not the rainbow. So what he's saying is it's multicultural colors, is what Give Me the Truth is saying.
Okay.
He says, I don't know, multicultural? Okay, you're right. I mean, again, I said rainbow-ish or esque, but you're right. It was more multicultural, but I didn't really know how to say with multicultural colors. I guess I could have just said it that way. Well, sorry, says Just Give Me the Truth. All right, so we're done. Very good. I think you should apologize to...
My words upset so many people.
They upset me. I don't know. To the Asian community. We haven't had a good apology to the Asian community. Albert, you didn't do anything in Asia that requires an apology? I feel like you would have.
I hope not.
You missed a prime opportunity to apologize to the Asian community.
Yeah. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Yeah, I don't understand why.
Maybe my thoughts on the Dodgers, since they just signed every good player out of Asia that were available going into the season. Maybe
it is true. The Dodger lineup is pretty fearsome. Yeah, with a lot of these. Great
Asian signings and former Giants players that were good for us. So.
Florida banned the biography of Roberto Clemente. Is that true? That the Florida school system
I have to check that out.
banned? I mean,
Google it.
I think that's extraordinary. Oh, wow. We are really in bizarre times, troubling times.
It's true.
God.
Wow. According to NBC, Roberto Clemente book removed from Florida public schools pending review over discrimination references. His story is that he went through racism, something that can't be changed.
Right.
And I guess they don't want to talk about racism in Florida schools. So sayonara, sucker. That's it.
Man.
Wow.
Audrey W. says, these people are just racists, period. Sure does feel that way. Sure does feel that way. I mean, one of the great things about America, one of the things I love about this country is that we have wrestled with our troubled history and we wrestle with it openly. And Roberto Clemente is a great example of a guy who triumphed over a lot of the impediments that were in front of him associated with racism. Hank Aaron is another. I mean, staying in baseball. I mean, Baseball was completely segregated. There was a Negro League, they called it, where black players could only play in that league. Some of the best players in history were playing in that league, weren't allowed to play with the white players. So we recognize that. We don't dry clean that from our history. Similarly, what we've done with Native peoples here. I mean, Native Americans were slaughtered. They were slaughtered by the hundreds of thousands. And we don't or shouldn't dry clean that history, although that history is being overlooked and minimized and, in a way, dry cleaned. So this, back to the book, Roberto Clemente's book, the Roberto Clemente book, removed from Florida public schools pending review over discrimination references. I just don't get it. Again, one of the essential elements of America is I think that we are free to talk about things related to our history and our government openly, and that we teach the history with a sense of the troubled nature of that history. We didn't get to this place without a lot of mistakes and even heinous acts being perpetrated. And I think it's fair to talk about those things. In fact, as I say, I think it should be celebrated.
It's like the COVID test. If you don't test for COVID, then you don't have COVID in America. If you don't teach the world about racism, then racism isn't really happening, right?
Yeah,
Let's pretend.
Sure.
Let's stick our head in the sand and say, la, 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 everything's fine.
Yeah. Stan Pollock, my favorite CPA, with a $10 super chat, says, I cannot help but be reminded of 1984. Yeah. The George Orwell book. Yeah. Right. It's true. I mean, all this Orwellian stuff that is happening. You have to teach the truth so people can do better, not just feel better, says Aaron Blaylock. Yeah, really good. Thank you for that. I am amazed. So we start with the Idaho teacher. We get to that Roberto Clemente, which we got out of the chat. Thank you. Trump's approval rating has dipped, by the way, but, you know, a lot's being made of that. I've heard it referenced by our guests a bit today, and it hasn't dipped to a point where it's dropping to alarming rates for him. I just don't see it as necessarily super relevant right now. Again, they did an Emerson College polling survey, and they found 47% of voters approve of his job performance and 45% disapprove. So that's a drop from 49%. And again, I just don't view that. Now, when you actually get down to economic policies and some of the other follow-up questions, there is polling out there that would suggest that, you know, he's really beginning to lose the public in a pretty substantial way. But that said, I don't think it's gotten, for him, the waters haven't reached the Lido deck, if you want to think of it that way. I think he can still kind of cruise along the ship of state. He makes these pronouncements, as I've suggested. I think that's very much who he is. He loves the show. He loved doing the Tesla thing yesterday. He loves announcing a tariff. He loves announcing a rollback on the tariff, a doubling of the tariff. These are all ways that he seizes the news. Meantime, Elon continues to dismantle government, and there's a real price that we're going to pay for all of this. And I should just say, Social Security is one of the things that we'll pay a price for. And we have a guest coming up who's done reporting in this area, and I'm looking forward to talking to him next. So smash the like button, which we have to do in the world of
with
YouTube.
Your iron rod.
Yeah, in the world of YouTube, it helps. It costs nothing. So if you can smash it like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, smash with your iron rod and give us a thumbs up. It helps us, again, in the algorithms that drive us. So we continue. All right. Thank you for that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My next guest is a staff writer, Jacobin, and he's done some great stuff when it comes to just laying out the clear case for sanity. He does that alongside some really great reporting. Branko Marcetic, congratulations on the great work you've done, and welcome to the show. I'm really delighted that you're here. And Branko, you did a piece in Jacobin on Social Security and the Social Security Administration and what's happening there. I wonder if you could share some of those details. They're really relevant to a lot of the people watching.
Yeah, I mean, the reporting that has come out in the last few weeks, basically, it sounds like an attempt to plunge the Social Security Administration, which governs the program, but then the program itself into basically dysfunction. What we're hearing is massive staff cuts. Initially, it was going to be 50%. Now they've kind of lowered it down to 12%, which is still thousands of people. It means the closing of in-person offices, Social Security Administration offices around the country that people go to process claims or disability things, or whatever they need to do in person. There was just reporting today that they are talking about maybe closing down telephone services for certain Social Security related needs. So the sum total of all this, if it actually gets pushed through, is that basically the Social Security will become far more dysfunctional, far less convenient, just far more difficult in every possible way to get your benefits, to be able to apply to get the benefits that you are owed as an American. And I think what the ultimate plan is to do is to point to this kind of chaos that is happening with the program, and then they can say, well, you see, look, the government is not able to do this. It can't actually administer a program of this size competently. The only thing we can do is privatize this, turn it over to a private company that will make money off it. And that's the way that you're going to be able to see your benefits continue to come regularly, and everything else that you've expected from the Social Security program.
I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because that is to say the final goal, the strategy, what they're working toward. It seems so clearly something that they've wanted. They've articulated it in Project 2025. What was striking to me about leading with Social Security the way Musk has, and making it part of the conversation so early, and they've only been in power 6 weeks or whatever it's been, is that it does produce a public backlash that they didn't really want this early. Project 2025 and Russell Vogt talks about, as you well know, because you've reported a lot on this, Vogt sort of talks about, boiling the water slowly, handling Social Security on down the way, but some of these other institutions of government that don't affect the public right away, that they won't notice, if you want to put it that way, dismantling those first and then getting to Social Security. It's moving the agenda up, as Musk has, and going right after Social Security. That did surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly correct. Russell Vogt's plan, and as you say, he was a guy who his entire history, he wanted to take on Social Security. He believed it should be privatized. And I think he still does. But what he said to an interviewer a couple of years ago is basically, look, yeah, we want to get to this. We want to cut Social Security. We want to cut Medicare and so on. But people are not going to accept that immediately. We have to kind of build up the political capital for it. And we also have to create a culture of spending cuts so that eventually when we start doing this stuff, people have been kind of acclimatized to it. I personally think that that's nonsense, that there's no amount of cutting that is going to make people okay with eventually cutting their hard-earned benefits, Social Security benefits. But that is his theory. And you're right, they are completely exploring that now. I think the only difference would be, the only distinction I would make there is that, Trump is continuing to say in public, I'm not going to cut Social Security. That was one of the things that made him kind of a rock star among Republicans in the first place, was that he was willing to say that when every Republican was for years saying we need to cut this program. He's still using that rhetoric, but I think what he has decided to do, or the people around him have decided to do, is rather than doing something like George W. Bush, where he tried to partially privatize the program or cut benefits or something like that, they've decided to do this kind of backdoor strategy for cutting the program. As I said before, the idea is that, well, we will just cut staff and services and close offices, and we'll say that we're getting rid of fraud and waste and so on. But actually what we'll be doing is we'll be cutting the program by making it unworkable, by making it so that people aren't qualifying for the benefits that they're owed, making it so that people can't actually get the disability and other claims that they are entitled to. I think that's what's happening. It's a cut by stealth.
It's fascinating because you've seen the first Trump administration inhabited by those who were privatization opportunists, and we've also seen Social Security talked about in the privatizing of it or the changing of it by George Bush, the younger George Bush, talking about the fact that, we'll set up independent accounts for people and you'll have control over your own money. You'll be able to invest it on your own and you'll have control over your, look, that was all sort of a preamble to privatization. And he was cowed, I think, by public reaction. But these guys don't seem to be too affected by public reaction, Branko?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised because I would have thought that the Trump administration would, given the Project 2025, that seemed like it had been this intricately planned out strategy. I assumed that, as you say, they were going to get to this a little later on, and they were going to be careful around protecting their political capital, around not eroding the electoral mandate that they had from winning. But yeah, instead, it's been quite slapdash and chaotic, which has led to Trump actually having pretty negative approval ratings. I mean, I don't know if it's that they've convinced themselves that the reason that they won really wasn't to do with prices in the economy. It was something else. And so they can completely disregard people's economic concerns. But I mean, the result of it is that right now Trump has the worst economic approval ratings of his entire career. And when you look at polling both during the election and subsequently, now when people are asked, what is it that you want Trump to focus most on? What is the most important thing? People say the economy. And then when they're asked, do you think Trump is actually focusing on the economy enough? A very small minority of people say yes. And that is not a good sign for him. We're not even 2 months into his administration. If things are looking this bad this quickly, when you're meant to be in a kind of honeymoon period, you can only imagine how much worse it's going to get in the coming year.
Yeah, his picking of fights with nations that we don't really have a hostile relationship with. I mean, essentially Canada and Mexico for starters, and then, of course, the European Union. It doesn't seem to fit into any kind of blueprint that I'm aware of. I mean, I understand he was talking about tariffs, and I was mentioning earlier in the show that I think a lot of the Wall Streeters and the business community that did vote for Trump in large numbers, and I was hearing this a lot, oh, he's not serious about tariffs. He likes to smack talk like that, but he's not serious. But here we are on the day in which heavy tariffing is going into effect.
Yeah, I mean, Trump seems to have been enamored by William McKinley, and he seems to have really taken on tariffs. Going by that historical example, he's taken it on as part of his political identity. The question is, what is the purpose of all of this? And that is not clear to me. It certainly has not been made clear to the public. I think Trump has issued, at least 3 different explanations, ranging from opioids to, immigration to other things. Basically, no one really knows what the actual end result of this is. I mean, I would presume that the idea is to onshore, to reshore American manufacturing, and basically make it harder for foreign-made goods to be sold here, make it easier for domestic industry to be built up. The thing is, though, I mean, tariffs are only one part of that. Yes, tariffs can be used to do that, but you also have to invest in domestic industry. And from what reports are saying, Trump is also cutting the bureaucracy involved in the CHIPS Act. He's kind of attacking that part of Biden's agenda, which was the other piece of that. That was, providing these large, generous government subsidies to private manufacturers to be able to set up in the United States. So if you're on the one hand harming that, but then just cranking up tariffs on foreign-made goods, I'm not sure if you're going to get the kind of domestic onshoring that he's hoping for. You might just end up getting way higher prices for the same goods that people are buying in the first place.
Certainly, I think in the short to medium term, I don't see any way that won't be the case. But as you say, the long-term goals may not be even served by some of this, or by any of this. There's a chaotic quality to everything that is going on right now, and I think in that chaos and sort of this fire hose of stuff that's happening in Washington, both on the Musk side and on the Trump side, it's hard to sort of make a coherent argument for this being a plan of any kind that has, is underpinned by a sensible goal. It just seems to be so much in the way of attention getting and a power flex. That's the way I see a lot of this, Branko.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an open question, what exactly is going on. My interpretation is, yes, I think there is a big part of it is the kind of showmanship and the drive for media and attention, 100%. I think also, Trump is a guy who famously has been all over the place politically. He was a Democrat, he became a Republican, he was very pro-choice, then he suddenly became very anti-choice when he had to run. He's very ideologically flexible. I am not sure if he really has any strong ideological commitments, maybe one or two, but it seems like a lot of it is up for grabs. I think he's a guy who mostly is just after a win. And he has surrounded himself with people who I think have accurately realized they can use him as a vehicle to get what they want done. When I wrote about Russell Vought, that was basically the argument I made. Russell Vought very cleverly recalibrated the way that he spoke about issues. Once Trump had become a national figure, he recalibrated it to sound a lot more Trumpian. It was still the same agenda. He wanted to privatize Social Security. He wanted to cut entitlements. He wanted to basically dismantle the entire federal government. But now, instead of using that kind of Reagan-esque rhetoric about small government and how government of all kinds is an enemy of the people, he started talking about we need to get rid of the woke and weaponized bureaucracy. We need to get rid of DEI and so on and so forth. And all of that is now being used as a way to kind of slash regulations, to get rid of government agencies like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And so what I wonder is Trump basically, he has these people around him who are just whispering to him whatever their particular agenda is. And he is just basically going along with it, even if, it may not line up with some of the things that he has historically talked about, like, restoring American manufacturing.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think and that does check out with him sort of regurgitating what he heard in the last hour type thing. He's very, much of, I feel, a product of that kind of thing. We were talking in the last hour, and I was talking about the fact that Bernie Sanders really shows Democrats how to speak. I think he's a great spokesperson. And the guest we had on said he's not relevant anymore. He's past his expiration date. And I said just the opposite. No, he's super relevant. He knows how to communicate, and Democrats, he could teach a master class in communication. This is the guy. Now, the reason I mentioned this to you, Branko, you did a piece, I believe, on Bernie Sanders. I read it a while ago, and you talk about the fact that he does galvanize people, even people who feel like really depressed about the situation we're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny for me to hear that, the idea that he's not relevant anymore. I mean, he has toured a bunch of rural and small towns in the Midwest over the last couple of weeks where he has drawn enormous crowds. I mean, I think it was in Michigan. They had not just an overflow crowd, but an overflow and then an overflow crowd. 9,000 people, I think. So I think, Sanders himself, he's obviously not going to run for re-election. He's not going to, rather run for the presidency again. He's been very clear about that for years. But I do think that the arguments, the points that he's been making for decades, for his entire career, I think the way that he communicates, I think that the alarm that he is raising, which is not just about, kind of nebulous warnings about Trump authoritarianism and so on, which, don't get me wrong, are valid, but are connected to talking about political economy and the way that the economy has been taken over by billionaires and by the ultra rich in general. I think that stuff is resonating, which is why you're seeing these massive crowds of people who, I was at one of these rallies to report on it. These are not people who are, far left activists or what have you, whatever the Democratic officials want to tell themselves. These are ordinary Democrats. I had a couple of friends who went to the rally in Wisconsin, in Kenosha, Wisconsin last week, and they said that over there was actually a mostly older crowd. And I think what that reflects is that people, particularly Democratic voters, are looking for some kind of direction. I think they're really dissatisfied and disappointed with the leadership of the current Democratic Party. They don't feel like they are fighting hard enough. They do not feel like they have a very potent message. And, I can't blame them. I just watched this clip of Alyssa Slotkin, the senator from Michigan, who has been kind of elevated as the Democrats' spokesperson in recent weeks, because she is supposedly able to speak to disaffected voters and Trump voters and the working class. And she was on The View and she's explaining why Trump won. And her explanation is that, the U.S. is in its teenage years as a country. It's only 250 years old. It's in its teenage years. Its brain is still fully forming. And teenagers, they act in kind of unpredictable and volatile ways. Not only is this incredibly condescending and insulting to people who may have voted Trump for a variety of reasons, out of hopelessness or desperation or what have you. It's also just completely nonsensical. I don't think that does not explain anything that is going on right now. And I think that kind of messaging is where the party is. And I don't think it's really resonating with people as much as talking about things like oligarchy, talking about the control of institutions by the ultra rich.
Sure. It's the billionaire boys club come to Washington, and Bernie calls that out. He calls it, this is ruled by billionaires. They are corrupt, and they're making decisions that are based on corruption. You need to say billionaire and corruption. You need to say it over and over and over again, and it will track. The ideas, I didn't catch that. Oh, we're the adolescent nation, and so we're acting as adolescents. Yeah, so the tariffs are really us hitting on Canada because we're hot for Canada. That's really what's going on here. So, wow, I have a whole different vision of America now because I realized that we're all a bunch of teenagers. Pretty crazy. Well, look, I love that you visit with us. Really enjoy your reporting. And what are you working on now at Jacobin? You have anything that for the next publication?
I've been obviously very concerned by the Mahmoud Khalil arrest and detention, as I think everyone in America.
Let's speak about that for a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, look, people who aren't familiar with the case, this is a permanent resident. He has a wife. His wife is 8 months pregnant. He's a green card holder. He happened to be the leader of one of the protests at Columbia University. He was the lead negotiator between the protesters who opposed the war in Gaza and U.S. support for it, and the university, in an attempt to get the university to divest from Israel. Whether you agree with him or not, and I do agree with him, but whether you do or not, the administration has made very clear they arrested him. They said, we're revoking your green card, we're deporting you. They sent him over 1,000 miles away from New York to Louisiana to a facility that is riddled with scandals about his treatment of detainees. And they're doing it all on the basis of, not that he committed a crime. They've shown no evidence he's committed a crime. In fact, a Trump official told an outlet earlier this week that, no, he didn't. It's not that he committed a crime. It's that his views are detrimental to the foreign policy of the United States, and so they are for that reason targeting him and getting rid of him. Now, as I and many others have said, doing this to a permanent resident, saying we don't like that you were at a protest, or we don't like the things that you say or believe about Israel, which is a foreign country, by the way. Let's remember, and so therefore we are going to just revoke your right to be in this country. We're going to revoke your green card and send you packing. That is a incredibly radical and dangerous attack on free speech that everyone should be alarmed by. Even if you are conservative or an Israel supporter and you think I'm fine with them doing that to this guy, There is nothing, if that president is allowed to stand, there's nothing stopping a future president who you don't agree with from doing the exact same thing to someone, an activist or a journalist or some kind of public speaker, doing the exact same thing and getting rid of it. That's a very dangerous thing. I think a very, very, very alarming step that I don't think we've seen before in this country.
I think you're 100% correct. I mean, the idea somehow that a president could do it. A president could just say that person or that group of people, they are enemies of the state. They're enemies of the people, whatever. I mean, they're making the terms up. I mean, and the president, of course, completely covered by the cloak of immunity as given to him by the Supreme Court, is able to declare that. He could declare you or me. And there's no due process associated with it. And now, the latest on this, though, is I thought that he was originally going to be deported, and now it looks as though he's not going to be deported. Just update me on the very latest with him.
Yeah, well, obviously there was a huge public outrage about this, and his attorneys worked very quickly to basically file a petition to stop it. So a judge has now stated, and so I think at this point, I don't know the exact up-to-date news on it, but for the moment, he is not going to be deported. He is going to have to be put in front of an immigration judge. I think, the case is probably going to last a little while. I've seen people say it could last years, for instance.
But then there is some kind of due process-ish thing going on. I mean, and he'll likely have representation that will be stout. And I think, well supported because of what he represents, because of what you've described. It's interesting that de Hagel says, but terrorists like the Tate brothers are fine to bring here. It is weird. We have this bizarre double standard right now.
Yeah. I mean, I would encourage people to go and actually watch or read the reporting or watch the videos people have compiled of this individual, Mahmoud Khalil. What all the people who want him kicked out say is they say, oh, he's a Hamas supporter, he's a terrorist, he hand out terrorist material, so on and so forth. They say all these terms, I think, as an attempt to just distract people from actually trying to see for themselves and just sort of scaring them into agreeing with this action. In reality, I mean, the interviews that Khalil has done with the news over the situation in Colombia are very reasonable. It's a young man calmly talking about what the demands of the protesters are, which is to end U.S. support for this horrible war that we were watching in Gaza, and also to get the university to divest from any Israeli institutions. None of it's about Hamas. Hamas hasn't even come up. I've actually seen people just spread videos of completely different protests and completely different protesters and just lie and say it was him because they can't actually find anything neither incriminating nor damning about this person. And I'll just add one more thing, which is that it turns out Khalil worked for 4 years in the British embassy in Beirut. And so, he was working on very sensitive matters for the British government. You do not get that kind of job if you are someone with extremist views or links to extremists. And by the way, to become a permanent resident, to get your green card, you have to go through a national security check anyway. So the idea that he got his green card in 2024 because the government decided he wasn't any sort of national security risk, and then just a few months later, he becomes this horrible, scary terrorist threat, I think is pretty unbelievable.
Branko, thanks. Great stuff. You can read more of Branko at Jacobin. It's Jacobin.com, right?
Jacobin.com, yeah.
Yeah, Jacobin.com. And I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
All right, all the best. Branko Marcetic. Yeah, right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Branko does a lot of great reporting. I encourage you to check it out over there, Jacobin.com. Yeah. Albert, Kim, I have stayed too long at the dance, always.
It was worth it.
In these conversations.
Yeah, I liked it, though.
I felt, we haven't done a lot on, and so on the free speech issues that have come up as a result of the Colombia protests and all the rest. And so I wanted to
Well, you
to
know,
get into that with Branko a little bit.
I'm struck by, people will look at it and go, "Oh, it's just some Palestinian protester. It doesn't matter. He shouldn't have been out there protesting, blah, blah, blah." Well, this is America. And first, they arrest the Palestinian protester for standing up in America and expressing an opinion. And the next thing you know, it's you and I here on YouTube. Free speech rights are free speech rights. Infringing on them is against the Constitution, and it goes against everything we stand for. So it's not okay to do it to him, and it's not okay to do it to you. Absolutely not.
Yeah, right on. I mean, very well said. Yeah, what can I say? Really, really good. So
that's pure speculation.
Okay. I
said it in my mom voice too.
Yeah, you did it. You
followed by
shifted
now
over.
go to your room and clean it up.
It's not acceptable, and I don't accept it, and it will never be acceptable.
That's right.
We'll talk more about all of this.
America needs a mom, like a strict mom who's going to clean crap up and take care of business.
Well, now you're sounding like a right winger. Good for you. Yeah. They need to crack the whip around here. That's the liberals with all of their DEI and their women's rights and trans people. They are ruining the country. What we need is a tough mom, and tiger mom, to kick some ass and tell everybody to get over there. There are only two genders, men and women. Yeah.
Stay in your room, do your homework, keep your eyes on your own paper.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would encourage you to rethink that policy. I think.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah. Where's a good chill out a little bit, Kim.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah, just chill out, baby. Come on.
If America is a teenager, I'm not chilling out until we at least hit 21. No way.
Oh, come on.
No.
Oh my God. Kim she's out of control. She really is out of control, Albert.
As they say, sorry, not sorry.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry.
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
Now I'm just hitting buttons for drops that I like.
Everything is going extremely well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Everything is going extremely well.
That feels like that should be in Mark's Madness, Albert. Everything's going extremely well. I don't think it was included ever before.
History. Everything is going extremely well.
I think that will be there. That'll be in the hunt.
I'd like I Blame You to be on this.
I Blame You will definitely be.
I know it's me, but still.
Oh no, it's very.
I Blame You.
Yeah, it'll definitely be in.
It wasn't in last year. Last year was Chit Chit Chit, right?
Well, you had Chit 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 that went. Thought it might go all the way.
Yeah, it didn't.
And
thank you.
All right. Albert, I don't have time for Kim's news, do I? I don't think I do.
I don't think we do either.
It's a good thing I wrote it, though.
I'm really sorry. I will go.
It's not a great newscast. 2 days in a row.
I do want to go.
In the news department.
I do want to go to it, Albert, because I think we can do it. Let me just get some coffee. Coachella Valley Coffee, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. They are sponsors of the show. Definitely give them a try. And then use our discount code, Mark T, at checkout. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Mark T at checkout. 10% off anything. They have coffee, teas, everything. And they sponsor Kim's News.
Yeah, they do.
And I always feel a little bit bad for, we have guests, we have good guests, and then we have to, move Kim's News farther and farther down, and then,
we could do a Kim's News.
I think we could do a turbo newscast. Yeah, couldn't we? I'm looking at to see. I'll tell you what. We'll check out some of the chat on the way out. But I did want a definite acknowledgement of a $50 super chat.
Whoa.
Audrey W. Albert, why don't we see these soon? I have to have this. I have to see it now. Why didn't I see it sooner? I don't understand why I have to discover that there's a $50 super chat. I mean,
why are you yelling?
You were yip yapping the whole time. We didn't want to interrupt you.
Him. Let Albert can speak for himself.
You were saying important things.
Girl, you just woo.
I mean, I'm just saying I was asking Albert.
Uh-huh.
Albert, what was the reason that we didn't see it?
Oh, my reason I was locked in on the visuals today. On the visuals.
All right. See,
Nice
that's good. That was a much better answer. Much better answer.
Game.
All right, between the two. All right. I'll let it go. All right.
And I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
Damn it. They do it to me all the time. We get a $50 super chat. No one tells me about it.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Audrey W. is someone I will love forever. She's found the way to my heart, Kim. This could be a note to everyone.
Very beautiful. Look at her picture there.
Oh, I didn't even see the picture. I was just taken by the money.
Well,
no, I'm thank you very much. Now I have to we'll read what she's saying. He hates the 84 million people who didn't want him since 2016, talking about Trump, of course. His literal revenge on 70% of the population that definitely did not vote him back in. We, quote, didn't love him. In a narcissistic sociopath, this is their brain dysfunction, she says. That's fascinating to think that these policies are deliberate revenge. Then you have to look at what policies you're talking about, because some of them really are targeted at blue states and the libs. And a lot of, honestly, the popularity around Trump is owning the libs. You know, I'm tired of having to say what the PC thing is. I'm tired of DEI. But it's, when you put it that way, I mean, it's powerful because I don't see an end to that, you know. So thank you for that, and really appreciate the $50 super chat. It does mean a lot. I'm teasing, but it does mean about. Welcome back, Albert, says Luis. Why didn't you stay for next week's Dodgers game in Tokyo?
Oh.
LOL. Peace, Kamish. Good luck to your Gigantes this season. Yeah. Yeah.
They were
Albert's,
promoting the hell out of that. There was a couple sports stores that were just blasting. They had TVs outside just playing highlights, and Shohei's. It's impossible to not see him in every corner and on every billboard in LA.
Wow.
Dems doing nothing, says Billy DeBono, to stop Republicans is the best thing going for them. Perhaps MAGA voters getting their lives ruined will get them out of the cult. So this is the James Carville School of Defense. Don't do anything. Let them just set ablaze everything, and then you'll be able to come in as the fire department later. I don't like that. I don't like that plan. I've said I don't like that plan, but Billy, I hope you're right, because I'll tell you what, that's what's going to happen. Democrats aren't really doing much, so, you know.
It's like the policy of on Halloween to at least once let your kids eat every single morsel in their Halloween candy basket until they get the worst stomach ache and they're barfing. And they'll never eat candy like that again.
That's a tough mom view. Harry Magnan says, this was for John Rothmann when he was on. The Democrats don't have a ground game. They've lost touch with the working class. The Bernie bros of 2016 are the Trump bros of today. I don't know if I quite know if that's a clean transfer, but I do think that that weirdly Trump has captured this bizarre populism, which is, as we know, total BS. But Pamela Kirby with a $9.99, $10 super chat. Can listen to Anthony for hours. Love both MTS and 5-Minute News. Thank you, Pamela. And thank you, everybody who is part of the crew that contributed to the show today. Super chats.
And it doesn't even matter what he says. Just
I know, he speaks so beautifully. Anthony Davis, he speaks so beautifully.
Which really kind of demeans him because his content is really amazing. What he has to say is very valid, but I mean, sorry, it doesn't really matter.
Well, he did say one thing that he did own, and I don't care how well he said it. And it's not what I was saying, the opposite, okay? So maybe it's me taking a victory. I don't know. It's a bad brag that I was right. I'm not trying to brag about it. But what I think of everything Anthony Davis says is compelling as hell because of the way he says it, and he's really smart. Okay, so, and he also isn't afraid to, you know, get out there. And the one thing he got out there about was what? He's not going to win, Mark. He's not going to win. You know, he's not going to win, Mark. He's not going to win. He said that over and over. And he owned it. Like when Trump won, he said, hey, I was wrong, which I really like and respect about him. But man, I wish he'd been right about that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Don't we all?
Yeah, sadly, it didn't happen. All right, guys, we're going to go a couple minutes late so we can get Kim's news in.
Oh,
She'll
I'm
do
gonna
it.
have to do it. Let me tell you that one of the stories though. Can I give you
got
one
it. Just
story?
again, no, you'll do a turbo newscast. Why
All
not? Why
right.
can't you? You could pick your top 5, and you can. Yeah,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Top 5.
Yeah, pick your.
So hard.
Pick
They're
your
all
faves.
They're all my little children. How do I
as
let
many
them
as you
go?
want. I don't care. Go ahead.
This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum are getting responses from other nations. The tariffs are 25% on metals that come into the United States from any country in the world, including our allies. Meanwhile, the European Union announced it'll impose counter tariffs on U.S. goods worth $28 billion. Most Americans have a negative opinion of tech billionaire Elon Musk. A new survey from CNN SSRS found 62% of American respondents say Musk doesn't have the necessary experience for the role. A similar number of doubts the Tesla's CEO judgment. That includes 28% who said the changes to the federal government are indeed needed. The U.S. cracking down on long-term visits from Canadians. Everybody out. Visitors that are planning to stay longer than 30 days are now required to register with the government. A new mandate uploaded to the Federal Register says anyone over the age of 14 will also need to apply for fingerprinting with authorities.
This is just crazy. This is
Tightens
crazy. I don't
an
understand it.
existing law that Canadians used to be exempt from. We were fine then, but apparently now we have to be fingerprinted. Okay.
This is
I
absolutely
say
personal
we.
with Trump. It's utterly absurd. It really is. Anyway, I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's it's starting a beef with your best friend. It's crazy.
I'll cancel the Palestinian activist story because we've talked about that, the stopgap funding bill, and we'll head right to Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. This is news that's just wild. She's being criticized for her comments about a black congressman who disrupted President Trump's speech last week, right? We ran video here on the Mark Thompson Show. Boebert referred to Texas Representative Al Green shaking his, quote, pimp cane at the president during a segment on a conservative cable network, Real America's Voice News, last Friday. Now, Democratic Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan from Pennsylvania is introducing a resolution to have Boebert censured as well. Care for her disrespectful words. Yeah, you don't say pimp cane.
Is a piece of work.
No.
Wow.
President Trump going after Senate Minority Leader
Which
Chuck
one was
Schumer.
at the theater with her date? Is that Boebert or was that Marjorie Taylor Greene?
That
Or
was
is it-
Boebert. That was Boebert. Yeah. During his Oval Office meeting with Ireland's Prime Minister today, Trump called the first Jewish Senate leader in United States history a Palestinian. While criticizing Democrats, Trump said Schumer is a Palestinian as far as I'm concerned. Schumer has been critical of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. During a rally last summer, Trump called Schumer a proud member of Hamas. Speaking of the meeting with the Irish Prime Minister, Trump taking a swipe at Rosie O'Donnell. She announced that she's moving to Ireland in protest of the Trump administration. And today at the White House, while visiting with Trump, Ireland's Prime Minister was asked, Ireland is known for very happy, fun-loving people. Why in the world would you let Rosie O'Donnell move to Ireland? That's what Trump asked the Prime Minister of Ireland.
Oh, my God.
California, of course, gearing up for a massive storm. It is expected to bring widespread rain and snow, and parts of Los Angeles and Malibu are posting warnings about mudslides and debris because of what's being called an atmospheric river-fueled storm. Most of LA and Ventura counties under flood watch from 6 p.m. today until 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. tomorrow. So 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. Convicted killer Scott Peterson dealing with injuries after he was hurt in a prison fight. State corrections officials say Peterson was injured at Mule Creek State Prison this last weekend. They wouldn't confirm reports that the issue began as an altercation between Peterson and another inmate while playing pickleball in the prison yard.
Wow, that's another big pickleball throwdown. Didn't
People take
realize it was
pickleball seriously, you know?
Yeah, I get. Well, in the joint, and there's probably money or whatever is valuable in the joint riding on it. Wow.
Salesforce set to invest $1 billion in Singapore, signaling continued United States confidence in Southeast Asia's growth in AI use. Southwest Airlines' decision to start charging for checked bags being met with ridicule across social media. A Texas travel planner says this will damage the carrier's reputation, especially among cost-sensitive families.
Well, here's why the Southwest
nothing.
Here's why the Southwest thing makes no sense, and I'm glad you're mentioning it because I wanted to include it. We just kind of got into the Social Security and Trump and et cetera. But the thing about Southwest is the no charge for bags and no charge for, change in flight. That was always a real inducement to book Southwest.
Right.
The minute and I think people kind of got used to the seating thing, although, assigned seating I always felt was something that they could upgrade from. But what they're doing now just makes them another carrier. And I don't think there is, just from a customer loyalty standpoint, I don't think there is a lot there at Southwest that is going to create loyalty from what I've seen. I mean, again, they were so chill about no charge for bags, you got to change your flight, no problem. All of that stuff actually created a kind of consumer loyalty. Now what they're doing will definitely boost revenue because you're now charging for bags and you're going to charge for all these other things. But I don't know if you're going to get loyal customers. Now, you can also say, hey, there's not a lot of customer loyalty in the aviation business anyway. People just go with the flight that's leaving at the right time, et cetera. Maybe, but I think Southwest really had a lock on a part of the market, particularly on the West Coast when you're talking about, LA to Vegas, LA to San Francisco, to Oakland, up to Portland, to Seattle, et cetera. These are all routes that are, quick jumps or quicker jumps. And I feel as though Southwest may lose a little of that business. We'll see.
Lastly, a California city has been named the happiest in the country. They always get named something. A Wallet Hub study compared over 100 of the largest cities across the categories income and employment, community, environment, emotional and physical well-being, and Fremont, California takes the top spot.
Wow.
Yay, Fremont.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Fremont has the highest share of households with an income over $75,000 and the lowest separation and divorce rate in the country.
Wow, that's incredible.
What?
Yay,
This is their new hoax.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, this report.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Yeah. Larry King was married 8 times. Fremont would have kept one of those marriages together, maybe a couple of them.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, Fremont would have kicked
I'm
him
so
out.
close. Fremont is a 2-minute drive from my house, but I could be happier, but unfortunately.
But you're Union City.
Union City, yeah.
Yeah.
This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. We know how good it is. Yeah.
I love that.
Got a little coffee. Got my vanilla tea helping my throat today. I love it.
Yes.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is the website. Please take a look at it. And if you decide that you'd like to try something, make sure you take advantage of the Mark Thompson Show exclusive 10% discount. The secret code at the end is Mark T, all together, MARKT. Enter it, get your 10% off, and your good stuff arrives in the mail just a couple days later. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
And what I would tell you is if you want to share the code, and she playfully, does Kim, say it's secret. But if you, members of your family want to use the code, it's okay. They might not be viewers to the show. But that is our discount code, Mark T, and it's okay for you to share it. But one of the great things I love about Coachella Valley Coffee is just the way they give you information and tasting notes on all the different beans. And everything is hand roasted. It's a boutique roastery, okay? So this is a high-end roastery that our viewers and listeners get a 10% discount on, and this is the best coffee I've ever tasted. So you should check it out. And as I say, they're tasting notes on all the different beans, darker, lighter, a breakfast blend. They have espresso beans that I actually am drinking an espresso bean right now. So, and of course, all the teas that you hear Kim talk about. Courtney loves those as well. And I've gotten to love a couple of these teas as well. They're bag teas, unbagged teas. They're really terrific. So
El Gato
Espresso is what I'm drinking right now. And it's so very tasty. Thank you very much. I love it. Well done, Kim. Are you done?
That's it. Party over. Sayonara, sucker. We're out of here.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I never want it to end, but it does end. I never want it to end. I'm never rooting for it to end. I'm rooting for it never to end. Yeah. I just got 2 pounds of Ocotillo espresso beans, says Vicky in Sausalito. And congratulations, Vicky. That is, I also get the 2-pound bags, you know, because I run out of them quickly, and I think it's probably a slightly better value if you get the bigger bags. But anyway, I am very excited about the after party live. I'll be listening. I will be listening in the car, actually. I think I'll be listening live in the car.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Not in the car, no.
David Katz joins us tomorrow, along with others. And Shadow, if you would, please.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
The others are Corey Brettschneider. It's a lawyer. It's a lawyer convention tomorrow. We'll get it all going. Constitutional expert joins us. Till tomorrow, everyone. Thank you and bye-bye.